Hi, welcome to the League-Kempner House in Galveston, Texas. I'm Janie, and I'm the president of the nonprofit set up to restore and preserve this incredible house. Normally in these videos, you see me in my work clothes covered in paint, doing something gross, working in the house, but we're not doing that today. We're going to depart from that a little bit. Galveston has a wonderful, rich history, and the families that built this house and lived here are part of that history. J.C. League was one of the big movers and shakers here in the city, and he married into another very significant family when he married Nellie Ball. And we've been working with several of the local tour guides and historians here to come up with some unique experiences around the history of this house and the people who lived there. And today we're going to do a little bit of that. We're also combining a request from one of our viewers to go see where J.C. League was buried. Well, Nellie's not here on the island, but J.C. is. And as luck would have it, there's a wonderful person who's perfect to do those things for us, and that's Kathleen Maca. She's a historian and a writer who does research on really all of Texas, but she concentrates here in Galveston. She's written several books, and she wrote the two wonderful Galveston monthly articles that just came out in their April edition. If you haven't seen it, there's a link on our website where you can go check those out. She's meeting us today at the cemetery. The cemetery is one of the places where she gives some wonderful tours. There's so much history you can find by looking at the graves and understanding the people who are buried there and how they contributed to this community. And it's a beautiful time of the year to do that, as you'll see. So we're going to head down there and meet Kathleen. As promised, here we are in the cemetery with our guest, Kathleen Maca. And she's going to correct me because I always call this the cemetery. When you're driving down Broadway, you see this, but I understand from her it's not just one cemetery. I'll let her explain that to you. But we are at the first grave that we're going to visit today. And as I mentioned before, Kathleen does a much broader tour of this cemetery. You can go to her website, kathleenmaca.com, and check that out. But today we are focusing just on a few graves related to the League-Kempner house. So I'm going to let Kathleen tell you where we are and what we're looking at.
Great, thanks. Right now we're standing at the gravesite of Thomas Massey League, who was John Charles's father. Of course, John Charles is the gentleman who built the home. This is Thomas Massey League. Thomas Massey League initially moved to Houston with his family, and he was the very first postmaster in Houston. He was also one of the very first members of the Chamber of Commerce in Houston. And in 1842, he moved his family to Galveston, and that included his three children, John Charles and Thomas Jefferson League, and their daughter, Esther. His wife, Esther, who they called Hetty, is also buried with him, as is his son, Thomas Jefferson, and his wife. And Esther Wells is buried with her husband on the other side of Trinity. And we're going to take a quick stroll over to the Ball Monument, where John Charles and his wife are buried with her parents.
And just for our viewers, so Thomas Massey, the father, is actually the one who made a lot of the money and started the business, and they were basically land developers. So it all originated with him being a very early player here in Galveston.
He was one of the most successful businessmen in Texas at the time, and they also had a enormous, beautiful home that I've written about previously, but it no longer exists, unfortunately, which is one of the reasons that we value the work that Janie's doing, because we're losing too many of these wonderful properties.
And there's a wonderful article about that. I'm also going to do, we're going to do a little bit of genealogy in the cemetery, but I'm also working on a project, kind of do the family genealogy based on the homes they lived in. So that will be fun. So that'll be upcoming. So let's head on over to the Fall Monument. Okay, so now we have moved, and I have to correct myself because I think I said earlier that Nellie was not buried here. I thought she was buried up north because her daughter moved up there, or was up there when she died, and I thought Nellie moved up there. But
She moved up there, but they brought her back to be buried with her husband.
Okay.
So
that's
you were on the right track.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I stand corrected. So
yeah. This is actually
Correct
the
me some more.
George Ball family plot. There are several of them buried here, including Nellie's parents, George and Sarah Catherine Perry Ball. George Ball is, of course, the one that is a huge philanthropist in Galveston, and he ended up dying a week before the cornerstone for Galveston Ball High School, which was named after him, was laying. They had 6 children, and Sarah actually outlived all of them except for Nellie, so they had a very special relationship. On this side of the marker is John Charles League and Nellie Ball League. And they are the ones that were the original owners of your home.
Yes. And I find that interesting that he didn't have his own plot or be buried with his family, that he was buried here with her family.
Yeah, all of the room in his parents' plots were taken, and she wanted to be with her parents.
So it was
that's why it was chosen.
And her mother, you said, was Catherine.
Sarah Catherine Perry.
So actually, I think Daisy's name is Catherine. They just called her Daisy, probably to differentiate between her and the grandmother.
Probably so.
That's interesting. Is there any kind of symbolism on this?
Well, an obelisk is one of the oldest symbols in a cemetery, and it basically points toward heaven. It points toward heaven because that's where we want the soul to go. They became very popular in the late 1800s, early 1900s, because there was a big push on anything Egyptian, any kind of symbolism that was Egyptian, and obelisk was right there with it.
What about these little flowers on the corner? Are they lilies, or are they just pretty?
So all of the symbolism in cemeteries usually has a meaning. It's very rarely just decorative. Theirs is very simple, but when you look more closely, it does have the cross. They were Episcopal. It has a lily, which is a symbol of mourning. But on the cornerstones, it actually has an acorn at the top of the lily, which is unusual, but that is for a full and fruitful life.
Okay, well, that's very interesting that you mentioned the acorn, because if you notice on the League house fence, the tops of the pickets on the fence are acorns. And I've also found some coat hooks that are acorns.
Interesting.
And he is the one who brought in all the oak trees into League City and in Galveston before the storm. And then Daisy, after the storm, he helped the women's, what's it called? The
Protective Society.
Replant the island with oak trees. So,
which is really nice. It all ties in.
Symbolic and ties in.
And of course, League City was named after him.
League City
because they were so thankful.
So where are we heading to next? Okay, we are in front of no one in particular's grave, but they're mowing down where we want to go next. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to let Kathleen just give us a quick overview of the cemetery itself. I mentioned that I thought it was one cemetery, but it's not.
It's not. We're standing in front of one of 2 Willis mausoleums. They were another prominent family in Galveston. The cemetery district is made up of 7 different cemeteries, the oldest of which is Old City in the corner on Broadway. And after that, it just expanded. Trinity, where we are, was the second one. And initially beyond that was just field. And they actually even used those fields for executions during the Civil War. When I give tours in the cemetery district, I talk about specific people. I talk about symbolism on monuments, the history of the cemetery district itself, and of course the history of Galveston ties in with all of that because these are the people that made Galveston happen.
And how many cemeteries are there?
There are 7.
7. So there's Old Cemetery, Episcopal,
Hebrew, Old Catholic, New City, Oleander. Is that 7?
Oh, no.
I wasn't counting.
We weren't counting. There's a lot, and Kathleen goes into great detail in that in her tour. And where we want to go next is actually where the Kempners are, the Hebrew cemetery. And you'll see, I think it's kind of sad, but you were telling me that they mow it. They don't like the wildflowers.
Yeah. Why the cemetery is so pretty this time of year is they let the coreopsis go. So it's kind of our version of bluebonnets. It's a wildflower field, and it's beautiful. It's a sea of yellow with the beautiful art in it. There are 2 of the 7 cemeteries that do mow during wildflower season, Catholic Cemetery, Old Catholic, and the Hebrew Cemetery. And it's not just being disrespectful to the flowers, but they view the flowers as weeds because wildflowers are technically weeds, and they think it's disrespectful for weeds to grow on a grave.
On the grave. And actually, this is not the best time for wildflowers. They were at their peak a couple of weeks ago, so they're actually on their way out. So you can just imagine what this looks like when they're in full bloom. It's spectacular, but I think the mowing is lightening up down there, so we're going to head down to the Hebrew Cemetery and take a look at the Kempners.
Definitely.
So let's go.
We were talking earlier about how the wildflowers are in most of the cemeteries, but not in the Hebrew. And we're in the Hebrew Cemetery, and this is where the Kempners are buried, the other family that's related to the house. This is Isaac Herbert and his wife Henrietta, and this beautiful monument behind me is her parents. It's actually made of marble. It has a lot of Hebrew symbolism on it, and it's very elaborate because they were a prominent family.
Kempner, we were doing Isaac Kempner, and whoop, we should have been over there at the big Kempner. We had to look it up online to find it, and there it was. Okay, so we found the right one. Yay! Here we are. Yay! The power of the internet. So this is Harris Kempner. So he married Eliza, and you pronounce the last name. I can't.
Oh, Seinsheimer.
Seinsheimer. So this is Harris and Eliza Kempner. And as you can see, she was a widow. He died in 1894, and she lived until 1947. So it looks like a lot of the children are here too.
Mm-hmm.
So Robert Lee Kempner, that's the one we call Uncle Lee. We talk about Uncle Lee's bedroom. And then Gladys Kempner, who Eliza left the house to her youngest daughter, Gladys Kempner. She lived until 1968, and that's when she willed that the house be put in the foundation. And then it was sold, and those proceeds helped to the fund, the Kempner Fund. And then Daniel Kempner and Jeannie Kempner, I don't know about, but I haven't had a lot of time to research everyone related to the Kempner.
We can find them.
Find that. But you can see this is a beautiful monument.
And this is, I think it's probably a good time to mention that in the fall, we'll be doing a combination tour. So you can come take the tour with me in the cemetery district, and you'll get to see all of the family monuments, learn a little bit about the individuals and the families, including the Seinsheimer family, the Wells family, all of the interested families that are connected with them. And then we'll go over to the house and take a tour of the home. So you'll get to meet the individuals, learn a little bit about them, hear about the cemetery symbolism, and then go see where the people lived.
So stay tuned for information on that special tour. We'll be posting on Facebook and Instagram and some reminder videos here, and Kathleen will have those tickets for sale on her website. So we hope to see those of you that can be with us in person in the fall. Join us for that tour. It should be a lot of fun. So thank you very much for offering to do that. It's a lot of work. When she does research, she goes deep. I mentioned that Kathleen wrote the Galveston Monthly article. The one about the family, I think she told me was 12,000 words.
It was supposed to be 1,200 words,
yeah,
but 1,200
words in the magazine. She wrote over 10,000 words. So she's basically digging in, doing all that research, and having all that available when we do those live tours.
Galveston is so much more than a beach destination. For those of you who love old homes and history, there are so many great things to see, and thanks to local guides like Kathleen and others, there are many chances to experience that history in some fun, unique ways. Here at the League-Kempner House, we're excited to have been included in a new tour being offered by Carriage House Rentals, that same local business that provided those fun Model T looking electric cars for our steampunk event. They've developed a special Reno to Demo tour featuring some remarkable restoration efforts undertaken to preserve Galveston's historic buildings and homes. And we're working with another local tour company to develop even more special tours focused on the League and Kempner families and their contributions to Galveston. But I'll save those details for a later video. If you can't visit in person, there's also a wealth of information published by local authors, such as the wonderful books written by Kathleen that you can purchase online. Or if reading's not your thing, you can listen to the acclaimed podcast series, Galveston Unscripted. No matter how you dig in, Galveston is a fascinating place.
Thanks for watching today. It's a gorgeous day. We hope you're having a good day too, and we'll see you back next time here at the League-Kempner House in Galveston, Texas.